You need many skills if you want to play jazz, and some of them can be hard to find good exercises for, or even realize that you need to work on them. In this video, I'm going to go over 3 exercises that will help you play better solos and develop skills that are difficult to fix by just practicing scales and arpeggios. My name is Larsen, learn jazz, make music. I hope you're having a great day and ready to play some jazz. This video should help you develop your melodies, your rhythm, and also your phrasing. Let's start with the melodies. This is something that you get hit by very hard the first few times that you try to improvise over a jazz standard. I know I certainly did, thinking that it must be impossible to follow the chords that move so fast. When you're trying to play a solo, then the chords are flying at you left and right, and it seems like you have to be a math genius or a computer to figure out what to play and where to play it.
It can only be attributable to human error.
This first exercise makes that a lot easier, and mastering this and the next exercise will already make you sound really good when you solo. Let's use a bit of the standard How High the Moon. 2 bars of G major 7, and then G minor 7, C7 to F major 7. The trick is to do the heavy calculations beforehand, because eventually you can get by without having to solve crazy equations whenever you see a chord progression. That's mostly a matter of experience. Now, I'm not going to cover how you find chord tones, diatonic arpeggios, and how to analyze chord progressions in this video, because I want to focus on how you practice soloing. But if you want to dig into that, then check out the playlist that I'm linking to in the description of the video, because that can help you develop that part of it. Of course, you want to play something on the chord progression that makes sense and has a natural flow to it, and the best way to do that is to play phrases that begin on one chord and end on the chord change. So in the song, when you move from G major to G minor 7, and a clear line going from G major 7 to G minor 7 could sound like this. So you're playing towards a very clear note in the next chord, often a chord tone, and you can hear how it gives you a natural sounding melody and also make the change of the chord very clear. With How High the Moon, essentially this is 2 bars of G major, the key of the piece, followed by a 2-5-1 in the key of F major. The simple thing you can do is to target the 3rd of the chord, but you can also check out how well the 5th might work, because that's a very strong melodic note as well. The 7th, which we often think of as a really strong note, is more for the chords and is actually not that strong a target note. If you improvise like this, then that could give you something like this. So when you want to develop this skill, then take the chord progression and find target notes, especially 3rd and 5th. Make sure the target notes are in the same area of the neck, and practice playing short phrases to hit each of those target notes. To develop this, keep it simple in one position, one target note at a time. If you develop the skill like this, you can expand on it later. You also want to give yourself time to think ahead. So just stop on the target note when you reach it and think about making a melody to the next target note. Later you can open this up and become much more free, and also not only play to target notes that are on beats 1 and 3. This approach is one of the best ways to develop a natural flow when you improvise over chord changes, and learning to think ahead is incredibly important and useful for so many things in music, not just playing solos over chord changes. You do have to be a little bit careful, because working like this you can end up with some very heavy phrasing that doesn't really sound like jazz, which is why you want to check out the next exercise. The most important ingredient in jazz is rhythm, but it can be difficult to develop, mainly because you forget about it when you're focusing on nailing the chord changes, and that can really ruin how you sound. In general, a great way to develop any skill is to reduce your options with the other aspects of your playing, so that you're forced to focus on training and developing that skill. When it comes to rhythm, then a very useful exercise is to limit your note choice so that you only have 2 notes and have to focus on being creative with the rhythms to get what you're playing to work. And if you try this exercise, then you'll probably be surprised how much you can learn. Let's check out an example and then talk about what you need to focus on to really develop your rhythm. When you set up this exercise for yourself, then try to choose notes that are mostly chord tones and close to each other across chords, so that it's easier to connect your lines across chords. Explore how to use a lot of offbeats, especially ending your phrases on offbeats. This is really the sound of bebop phrasing, and it's going to help your solos sound 10 times better. You also want to try to play melodies with quarter note rhythms. We always focus on learning to play 8th note lines in the beginning and forget how great it can sound to play quarter note rhythms. But if you check out people like Lester Young, Charlie Christian and Wes Montgomery, then it's really quite clear why you also want to learn how to do that. When you can play a solo over the harmony and you're beginning to use some more interesting rhythms. Yeah, so what I mean with that is of course that you're working on the 2 other exercises that I covered in this video. Then you can start working on making the melodies that you play more surprising and more complicated. And you actually do that by playing a lot of wrong notes. What? And then resolving them to some right notes. Now, obviously this is a huge topic, but an easy way to get started is to do 2 really simple things. Add a chromatic note before the start of a phrase like an arpeggio, and adding chromatic notes between 2 notes in the scale. And if you put this to use over a standard like Ladybird, then that sounds like this. In the beginning, you want to resolve to chord tones and have the resolution on the beat as you see in this example. The first C major 7 bar starts with adding a chromatic passing note between D and C. And of course, the C that you're resolving to is on beat 2. The same thing happens between A and G, and on the F minor 7, I'm adding a chromatic leading note before the F minor 7 arpeggio. And I also make the arpeggio into an 8th note triplet, which is a great bebop sound, something you definitely also want to check out. The B flat 7 has a passing note between the C and the B flat, and the transition back to the C major 7 is also helped with some chromaticism where I'm moving from F up to G on the C major 7. As you can tell, it's very important that you work on playing strong solo phrases and melodies using the arpeggios or the chord progression. That's why you should check out this video, which will give you a way to get started working on that skill, but also show you how to get it into your playing, how you can start using it and expand that into a complete bebop vocabulary.